Hey guys, this is my 1954 outboard motor. It's a 7.5 horsepower Firestone. I'm going to put a list of items I talk about and work on the motor in the description, so if you want to skip ahead to that you can. But first things first, let's go take it for a ride. So we get the top off here. First things first is identifying what year your motor's from. If you look at the code number, these last two numbers, 45 here, that means it's a 1954. You switch those around, you get the year code. So the first thing I did when I got the motor, brought it inside, I got new fuel lines and the new pressure pulse line. Here you can see some of the old line. It was pretty well rotted out. So one of the first issues I ran into, I was turning this over and I wasn't getting any spark. So I pulled this plate off, and then there's 3 holes in here. You can get a flywheel puller and get that all out. So yeah, just cleaned out the contacts, used some sandpaper, made sure that the spark cables were firmly affixed to their points in there. If your spark cables weren't hooked up when you get your motor, they might be different for different years, I'm not sure, but in my case, port side goes to the top, starboard side goes to the bottom cylinders. So when I got the motor, this handle was absolutely stuck. There was no turning it whatsoever. Turning to a couple different things. You'll see this gear train here spins that will manually advance and retard the spark. It actually physically moves the location where the sparks are coming from. So that's pretty cool. Another thing it does, you see here, it'll actuate and open up carburetor. I was playing with it a little bit, trying to tune it so may not be in the best position, but yeah, it's something you gotta play with on the water. So this handle was frozen absolutely stiff when I got it. There was no movement whatsoever. I was able to break it, and I could actuate this up here, but it was not doing very well. The way you get this handle off, there's a little pin right there that you gotta pound out, and then this whole assembly slides off. I ended up just kind of sanding down the aluminum right here, and then I went inside with a wire brush and sanded the inside of this. Just used a light oil on it, and now it moves pretty good. So one thing that I don't like about this motor that I don't intend to fix, this right here is currently the choke. This connects to the carburetor. This button actually, you can kind of see some of the lettering here. It says push to choke. So that is actually supposed to be what chokes the carburetor, but looks like someone drilled this after the fact, and this is the low speed control, high speed control. Basically this one controls all the fuel getting into the carburetor. You can shut it all the way off and then no fuel gets in. And then this one just controls this upper vent in there. You probably can't see it very well, but so the first day I got the motor, I was able to run it pretty well, but I was connecting fuel straight to the carburetor. Just totally bypassing the fuel pump over here. So this pump operates from pressure pulses from the crankcase coming through here. You got the inlet here and the outlet here, check valves on either one. It just changes the volume in there. Right now I just have a temporary diaphragm in there so I could run it just to prove out and make sure it was the fuel pump that was broken, but we're gonna bring this down to the shop and put the real one in now. So you definitely don't have to be a mechanic to see that this diaphragm is absolutely no good anymore. See, this is where the pressure pulses come from the crankcase, and then this is, I think, just kind of like a accumulator sort of thing. I'll show you in a second when we take it apart, but I got the new one here. eBay, it was like 20 bucks. All right, so I got all the bolts out. We're gonna go ahead and take this apart, see how my diaphragm did. I just cut this out of a nitrile glove, but it held up for a couple hours. You can see it's basically doing the same thing that this was doing. Yeah, pretty much the same exact wear pattern. But, I mean, this only needed to hold up for a little bit, and it did, so. Now this is the part that I'm absolutely dreading. I started this project, I didn't want to open anything that I didn't have to open. The water pump is working on this. It does spit out up here, right behind this bolt. There's a hole in there. So it does get cooling, but this is what the gear oil looks like. This is fresh gear oil that I put in. Then I ran it in the water for about less than half an hour, really. Just you can see there. That's some of that water oil mixture. Whoever did this went absolutely crazy with the liquid gas. You can see here it's just covering the nuts and bolts. But I think we can figure something out. Looks like, so we made it in. This is the crustiest gearbox I've ever been into. But there's that other bolt I was looking for up there. Covered in a nice mustardy sludge. God, this thing stinks. So I got this housing piece off and cleaned up and put some more gear oil on it just so stuff doesn't start rusting. But this is what the gear shift actuates. See, we got this here. I'll clean it up in a little bit, but this part moves up and down from the gear lever here. So that moving up and down actuates this. And there's kind of this stepped pin in there. I pulled out the detent plug here, put that back in. The nice firm gear shifts. It's from that piece there. So basically how this transmission works, you have the selector lever here, which raises and lowers this pin, which had this bit on it. That raises and lowers this guy, which we saw before, raises this. And then this has a spring, a little detent on it. Now, this gear, and I'm assuming the other one, has the same sort of pattern on it. So when this is all the way this way, spring loaded, it's going to be in one direction, allowing this gear to mesh. And when it's all the way over here, it's going to allow the gear that's back here to mesh. So I'm going to keep pulling this apart and see what else I can see. So we saw a bunch of the oil dripping from where the water intake is. So it's coming up through here. So our impeller sits in here and spins, right? Notice the hole's off center. So as it's coming around here, the gap between each of these fins expands, draws water in, and as it comes around here, it pushes water out, and that sends it up into the rest of the motor. Not very easy to see on the video, but it is not doing so hot. Let's see if I can zoom in. So that piece of rubber there is shredded. So yeah, the pressurized water's shooting its way down through here, past that seal, getting all in the gear train down there. Yeah, it's no fuck. This is the new seal I got. Let's see if I can get the focus on here. So this is just a kind of a lip seal, but it is for a drive shaft. It is for a rotary shaft. So I think if I put it in, I think it should work. This is one of the thrust washers that was in there previously, and you can see these pins are worn down pretty good. So I made a new one out of some brass. I think it'll do just fine. See on the back, I got it lapped and sanded with the oil feed port. I think it should work. All right, so we're gonna start rebuilding our gear train. Put some gloves on.
Enough to allow it to clear. Let's see how much is. It clears. Beautiful. Great. You didn't realize the button went on. Top here.